Greetings. I'm going to work through the September trial examination as created by the Western Cape Education Department for September of 2021. This year we had a slightly different way of accessing the files, and I'm going to run through that first before I dive into question one. They gave us a zip file, and as you can see by the file extension, it was in fact an exe, which means that it was an application that needed to be opened. It was going to open the folder to the same directory, at which time you then would have followed the instructions to rename it to your name and surname. Please keep in mind that in your examination, for your final examination, not to include your name on any of the files, but rather to utilize your examination number. So you ran the application. It usually defaults to wherever this file is sitting. At the moment it's on my desktop, which is why you can see its file path is trying to put it somewhere on the desktop as well, which is fine. So I click on extract. The password would have been on the inside page of your examination question paper at the bottom. It was in bold under the instructions. It was 21 capital SEP capital P exclamation mark at 89, and there you can see it's extracted to my desktop, and we can have a look at what those files look like. Right, so they very kindly named all the files pertaining to each question with the number next to it. So these are all the ones that have to do with question one. These are the ones that the one file that we're utilizing for question 2, 3, and so forth. Right, so for question 1, we're going to be working in the Smart City info document for a start. We'll come back to that One Century City JPEG that we're going to utilize in a bit. I've opened this document before, which is why there is a cache or a file that's trying to bring me back to where I was working on Monday, as I was going through the file with my matriculants. Right, the cover picture needs to be replaced with the correct image, which is the Century City JPEG. On the cover page, I simply select that picture file that needs to be changed. One can right-click on it and say change picture. I like to show people where it is on the ribbon, because oftentimes in the exam you might right-click on something, not find what you're looking for, and it could lead to a mild anxiety attack. So it's easier just to look at where the correct controls are on the ribbon. If you do want to utilize the right-click, that is entirely your prerogative. So you select the picture. There are two possible places you can go. Table tools, because I think the content controls in this cover page have been used, or this template cover page have been put into various cells, but we're going to use picture tools, and then right at the top here you can see change picture. We're going to pull it from file. I'm then going to navigate to my desktop where this is saved. The folder I'm looking for is grade 12 SEP data, and I'm looking for that one that should have been used, which is the Century City JPEG. I then click insert, and you can see it then changes and puts it in into the content control box for the image on the cover page. Right, that was 2 marks. The next mark that we needed there by 1.1.2, they asked me to remove the author content control box on the cover page. For this one, you could have very easily gone and highlighted this and clicked delete. You would not have, however, gotten the mark for that. You in fact needed to click on the content control box itself, select the delete key on the keyboard, and it would have then removed it completely. Otherwise, you would not have been awarded that mark. Right, the next one we had to look at was the smart heading that was used in your styles gallery. We had to modify it, so let's have a look at how we're supposed to modify it. They ask us in the question paper to base it on the heading style 1. Currently, it's based on the title style. So I would have selected the drop down there, and I'm going to select heading style 1. More than that, they've asked me to change it to the font color orange, accent to darker 50%. And that is one of my theme colors over here. There's orange. If I go down, you can see orange accent to darker 25, orange accent to darker 50%, and that's the one I'm looking for this style. I then click OK, and that's my smart heading edited. So all places where I utilize that smart heading in the document would have automatically changed to based on heading style 1 with that color variation that they've asked us to select. 1.3, we're making a change to the index. this is the heading. They've very kindly highlighted it for me, where they've asked me to change it to any heading style. I've just used the smart heading, so I may as well just change it to that one, but it would have been acceptable using heading style 1 and 2 as well. I think it would have picked up in the table of contents. So I'm going to use the smart heading that I've just utilized now. That's the first step, is actually making it that smart heading. Smart heading 1 or smart heading 2. The next step is to actually update your table of contents, otherwise it's not going to show. Right, there it is. I right click on it. I'm going to say update field. There are two options available to me. If you've made alterations to the document, you're not wanting to add additional headings, you simply say update page numbers only. I have in fact included a new heading, so I need to update the entire table, which is why I select the second radio button. Click OK, and there you can see Smart City Technologies comes through. Don't worry about the highlighting. For marking purposes, it's actually easier for the marker to see that that is pulled through to your index. You don't have to remove the highlighting on that heading. Right, moving on to 1.4. We need to create a hyperlink on the Smart City, this Internet of Things that goes to Smart City, which is one of the bookmarks in this document. So I select the text I'm wanting to insert the link on. I click on the Insert button up in the top in my menu. I then move across to Links because I'm going to be linking to something in the document. Currently it's looking for something external like another file, or I could actually put the web address if I wanted to link something to something on the internet. But no, I'm wanting to go to a place in this document. Go to Bookmarks, click on Smart City IoT because this is the bookmark that relates to Internet of Things. Click OK. You'll notice now that it's gone blue and underlined. It is in fact a link. If I hover my cursor over, you can also see it will show you how to follow that link, which is pushing Control on your keyboard and left clicking on that link, and it will then navigate to that bookmark in your document. Right, we then need to change this numbered list, which is a smidge down. This is question 1.5. They would like this to become a bulleted list. Now, you received 1 mark if it was simply changed from a numbered list into a bulleted list. This is on your home menu in your ribbon across here, bulleted list. There's your 1 mark. Now, if you want to receive the second mark, it needed to be changed to a specific bullet, where they used an image in your exam folder. Click on the drop down. You're going to click on Define New Bullet. You're going to then find a picture. We're working offline. It is based in my exam folder. It automatically opened that, which was very sweet of them. If not, you're going to go to Desktop, September there, and then you're going to find the 1 sim PNG that we're going to utilize for this bullet. You click Insert, click OK, and then you can see all of my bullets have changed to that new symbol that we're going to utilize for this one. Right, then we're going to be editing a citation for question 1.6. Let's go down and find that citation. Now, you can see right now I'm busy searching for it. Now, I managed to find it there because it's highlighted. But if you're wanting to find something quickly, don't hesitate to use your Find option at the top. Type in the phrase or whatever that you have in the question, and it'll quickly navigate to where you need to be in the document. Right, they would like me to suppress the author. In other words, they only want the author, and we're going to change the page number in a bit to be displayed. They don't want the year there. Simply click on the drop-down option next to the citation options. You're going to edit the citation, not the source. You're happy with the source. It's still Basson, was still published in 2020. I just don't want to show the 2020, so I'm editing the citation. This will come up. Here are your options of things to suppress. I'm going to be suppressing the year. There you can see the years disappeared. Also, I'm going to be adding a page number where this citation was found in my source material, and that is on page 122. And I click OK. You'll now see it's Basson without the 2020, page 122. That's what we needed to complete for question 1.6 in the citation. The next one, they asked me to find the paragraph that starts with "this becomes" and ends with "for citizens." We're going to be editing this and changing the line spacing. Now, people go to the ribbon automatically and they see here by line spacing options in the paragraph, and they find there's nothing that says 12 points exactly. If you're not finding what you're looking for here, you go to your line spacing options. It opens a paragraph dialog box. Another way to get to the paragraph dialog box is simply clicking on the more paragraph settings in the bottom of the grouping on your ribbon. It will bring up the same dialog box. You go to line spacing at the bottom. We're going to set it to exactly, and it defaults to 12 points, but if not, you could either type it in or use the spinner to set it to exactly 12 points. There you can see it's 2 marks. Exactly was the one thing you had to select, and 12 points, 2 marks in your exam paper for that. The next thing we had to do to this paragraph was set the left indentation to 1 centimeter and the right indentation to 2 centimeters. Now I can use my paragraph settings for this as well and go to indentation, left 1, right 2. I like to use the ruler because it's simpler. If I grab the top marker, it would be a first line indent. If I grab the bottom marker, it would, not that one, sorry, the box, the arrow, it would be, why are you doing this to me? It would be, there we go. It would be a hanging indentation. I'm grabbing from the box on the ruler, and it will then give me a full left indentation, and I want it at 1 centimeter. My right indentation will be at 2 centimeters from the margin, 16 minus 2, so we bring it down to 14 centimeters, and that's 2 marks for question 1.7.2. Right, I need to find the text telemedicine in the document. I'm just going to type it in. There it is, highlighted for me as well. For this question, they ask me to insert a footnote on telemedicine. So I select that text. Now, I know we would feel we need to go to insert because we're inserting something in. It isn't in fact there. It is under references that we do our footnotes. And I'm not going to use the normal insert footnote option because I'm specifically asked in this question to insert a footnote that must be below the text or next to the words. So I'm going to select more options, and instead of putting it at the bottom of the page, I'm going to say, no, please keep it below the text. Okay, I click insert. They didn't specify what type of footnote I needed to utilize there. If there was a specific footnote symbol that you needed to use, you can edit those by using either number formats or customizing it with the symbol of your choice. The text that needed to be displayed in this footnote was simply digital healthcare services. So I'd simply type in digital healthcare services, and there is my footnote for that one done, 2 marks. The last thing I needed to do was page numbering, but page numbering specifically in this document where we don't have it on my index or table of contents page. Now you'll notice on my table of contents page, they've inserted a section break. And a section break is a very valuable thing in a document because it allows me to regard a certain portion of the document differently to the rest. I'm going to go on to the second page where my page numbering is going to start. They want this in the footer, so I simply double click in the bottom of the page, and I'm going to go to page numbers. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the page. They said I can use any style I'd like to use, but it needs to be automatic page numbering. But before I add this page numbering, I need to do something very important. I need to break the link to the previous section. So because that is no longer grayed out, it means that anything I do to this section of the document will not be the same in the document above or the page above. It's basically saying, what I'm doing on this page is simply different to what precedes it. I can now go to page numbers. I'm going to put it on the bottom of the page. I'm just going to go for a simple format. I'm not going to get flowery with it. It's just got to be automatic page numbering. You can see right now it's starting at 0. I don't like that, so I go back to page numbers, format my page numbers, and I tell it to please start at 1. I'm not telling it to continue from the previous section because I've already broken that link. So there it starts at 1. Let's navigate down and make sure the rest of the document's behaving itself. It's not, so let's quickly go and put that in there as well. Page numbering, page number, bottom of page, center. And there you can see it's continuing 2, 3, 4, and it's excluded your table of contents page. And that brings us to the close of question 1. Right, let's dive into question 2. For this one, we're going to be utilizing the document 2 Smart Applications doc. And if you look in your folder, you'll find it there. For this first one, we are going to be editing a section of the document where they say it starts with the 6, they've beautifully highlighted there for us, and ends with creativity. So I'm going to go ahead and select this section for what I need to do to it. They ask me to make it look like the screenshot on the exam question paper, which I'll be linking below this video. If I look at that link, or that screenshot, sorry, I can see there that they have edited it into 2 columns, but they've excluded this first number in the multi-leveled list. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to select this bit here, sorry, from economy down through to creativity, and I'm going to click on the layout tab at the top. I'm not going to select the putting it into 2 columns because they specify there that they want 1 centimeter between the 2 columns. So I'm going to go to more column options. I'm still going to use the 2 column option, but I'm specifically going to make the spacing between the 2 columns 1 centimeter. And you see that it will automatically adjust the column width to suit the spacing that I've selected. So there you can see it's now into 2 columns, and it's excluded my first bit in my multi-leveled list. I'm going to get it and select everything now because I'm going to adjust the numbering, the multi-leveled numbering in this section of the document. Click on the Home tab. To do this, you'll see it's the 3rd icon in the paragraph grouping. Here's multi-leveled lists, and I'm going to define the new multi-leveled list. Right, for this one, I'm happy with where the first level is, 1, and it's 0.5 from the document with a 1.5 centimeter indent. That's perfect. I'm going to do the same thing for my level 2. It's currently 1.9 centimeters from the left margin. I don't want it 1.9. I want it to be 0.5 centimeters from the left margin. And my text is going to be 1.5 centimeters from that, so it needs to be a full 2 centimeters from the left margin to make that work. My 3rd level indent, I'm not going to make any changes to that. I simply want to make sure that it's utilizing numbers, which it is, and it's 2 centimeters in from the margin with 3 centimeter indent. That should be fine. I can make changes to that later if it doesn't look right. Right, here we go. I do see that those letters don't look quite right going down with the numbering. So let's quickly go back there and see what we can do to change it. Sorry, under multi-leveled list, let's see. Right, level 3. I want to bump that indentation in slightly because it doesn't quite work when it's still in line with it there. Let's see what that looks like. Much better. Right, there is a problem with my multi-leveled list. If I look carefully, these 3 items underneath economy, entrepreneurship, productivity, and local and global interconnectedness should be on the 3rd level. So I simply put my insertion point next to those and hit the tab key, and it will bump it up to the 3rd level in my multi-leveled list. And that brings me to the end of that one. I'm just quickly glancing through the marking guidelines, and I think we've basically done all that's required there. Right, moving on in the document, question 2.2, they ask me to resize the picture above application forms. This one here. The problem is that they want both the height and the width to be 4.3 centimeters. So once I select this, you see it's grayed out picture tools on my menu at the top there. So I select that on the ribbon, and I go and I'm going to say I want my width to be 4.3, and you see, but it messes with my height. Right, the reason is because it's got a locked aspect ratio. So once again, I open up the advanced settings that have to do with the sizing of the picture. Here by locked aspect ratio, I'm going to deselect that checkbox, which now allows me to ensure that both my height and my width are set to 4.3. So I can go there. It's not giving me exact, so all that I need to do is type in 4.3 with my keypad on my keyboard and click OK, and there you can see both my height and width are exactly 4.3 because I deselected that option for locked aspect ratio. A couple of things we need to edit in the application form itself. The first thing is we're going to be changing the tab stops. You can see all of these form fields are higgledy-piggledy all the way across the document. So I start off by selecting all of the areas where I want my tab stops to apply. Click on the paragraphing option on my ribbon and change the dialog box that opens up by hitting that control button in the bottom left corner, which changes it to the tabs dialog box. In the question paper, they asked me there to change it to 7 centimeters and to apply to all the controls. So all that I type in there is 7 centimeters. It's a left tab because everything is aligned on the left of that 7 centimeters and moves the text to the right. There is no leader line, so I can simply click set, click OK, and there you can see everything's beautifully aligned, all my content control boxes in one line there, and it pushes them to the right hand side. So that was 1 mark for the correct tab stop, 2 marks for ensuring it applies to all of those form fields. Ensure that both checkboxes for gender are exactly 12 points. So male 1 has already been set to 12 points. You can see there's a bit of gender inequality for this one. So in order to work on your content control or your form boxes in your Word document, you need to ensure that your developer tab is activated. So you click on developer. I'm going to right click on this one and say properties. Here you can see it's set to exactly 12 points. All that I need to do is do the same thing for the female one. Right click on it and click on properties and say I want it to be exactly 12 points. Click OK, and now the sizing on both of those is exactly the same. The next thing that I need to do is the drop-down list that applies to the sector field. So this one over here, they want this to say select 1, and they want that to be the first thing that displays. So I select that field, I click on properties, or I can simply right click and go to properties that way. Choice is yours. So here you can see all of the options that are going to be available when you send this out as a form. I need to add one, and that one that I'm going to add is going to say select 1. I'm going to add it, but that's not enough because it adds it to the bottom of that list. So while that one has been selected, I'm going to tell it to move it to the top of that list. If I click OK, you're now going to notice that my sector field starts off with a select 1, and then any user who's then going to utilize this application form would then be able to select the list box, the drop-down list, and select which field they would like to have for this one. Right, moving into question 3, and probably one of my favorite parts, or one of my favorite applications to utilize, the Excel question. In this trial examination, they created 2 Excel questions, so question 3 and question 4 will be based in Microsoft Excel. So for question 3, we're going to use the file 3 Smart City XLSX, and I open up that workbook. In that workbook, there are 3 different worksheets. It's good to familiarize yourself with which worksheet you're going to be utilizing. For the first bit, you're utilizing the Reconnect worksheet, and there are a couple of calculations we are going to do in this worksheet specifically. They will always in the examination have this space on the side, which allows you to use building blocks if you want to break up a calculation into different steps, rather than creating one lengthy formula with a whole bunch of functions nested inside of it. So that option is available to you if you're wanting to do it in manageable steps rather than all in one go. Right, question 3.1.1 asks me to change the row height of row 1 to 40. They always give you sweet formatting questions like this in order for you to garner some additional marks. So here you can see where the first row is, and they want this to be exactly 40 points. Please don't be the person that tries to get it right by dragging on the side here. It's much simpler simply to go in your ribbon on the home menu to format, go to row height, and type in your 40 there. And oops, I put in a backslash, which is obviously not going to be accepted, and it automatically then makes it 40 points. Much easier than trying to click and drag. So that was 1 mark. They then wanted in 3.1.2 to freeze the pane so that the headings in row 2 display when you scroll down. Now, there is an option under View to freeze the top row. But that's just the top row, and it will only keep the top row visible, and you're going to lose out on what they asked for, which was row 2 as well. So it's important at this point to use the the third, or that option available, the first one, the freeze panes option, and where you select is important. If you look carefully in the tip there, I'm going to zoom in just so you can see it. Sorry. You can see where you select is the blue box, and then it will freeze anything to the top or to the left of that. So they want just the top 2 rows. So for that one, I'm going to select in row 3. Let me move closer so you can see what I'm doing there. In row 3, in the first column, I'm going to simply put my select that cell and then select freeze panes. So now you can see if I scroll down on the side there that my top 2 rows are locked or frozen, and it's easier for me to see what's in the rest of the document. So that was also just one mark there. They then asked me to wrap the text or make sure that the text in cell B37 was the same as the rest of column B, and that was, as I've already mentioned, a wrap text that you needed to do there. You'll notice that all of this text sits above each other, all the way down. So we simply had to do the same in cell B30. What is it? B30, where are we now? B37. So here's B, there's 37, there's flight center, and you can see it's currently not wrapped. Home menu, wrap text, and there it looks the same as the rest of the column. Okay, so those first 3 marks in the question paper, simple formatting questions. We are now going to do a couple of calculations, formulas and functions to answer the remainder of question 3. Question 3.2 asks me, they say all the locations in column B receive 4 hours free Wi-Fi. Those locations using more than 4 hours of Wi-Fi will pay for additional data used. They want me to use a function in cells, so they specify a function, not a formula, in cell C39 to determine how many locations will be paying for additional Wi-Fi. So you can see, fortunately, there's nobody less than 4, but I can very quickly and easily determine in this one who's using more, because 4 is the least that they're using. So I'm going to start off by counting everybody. So I'm going to say equals count A and see how many are there, right? So I select that entire cell range, and there are 35 different areas that are utilizing Wi-Fi. Now I want to take from that those that are using 4 hours, because that's basically going to mean everybody else is using additional Wi-Fi. So I go back to this function, and in here I'm going to add to that a COUNTIF. So I started with the count A just to simply count everybody in the cell range. I'm then going to subtract a COUNTIF of the same cell range, except in this one I'm going to only count them if they are using 4 hours specifically. And remember, because it's criteria with text, you're going to utilize quotation marks. So it's only going to subtract from everybody those who are using 4 hours, and in so doing give me the people who are using additional, which is 23. So that was question 3.2 with 3 marks there. You're using 2 functions, that one and the second one, and then your criteria being the correct criteria, which is your 3rd mark. Right, question 3.3 is coming up with a function in cell C40, so that means I need to navigate. Oh no, actually I am in the correct C40. This was incorrectly labeled, it seems. Question 3.4 should have been labeled question 3.3. So this is cell C40. I am in the correct cell. So for this one, we are going to display how many years the bootlegger Century City has been an internet subscriber to TechSci service provider. Right. So for this one, I'm going to take it based on where I am now. In other words, from today's date, subtract from when they started. So if I look in column G, I can see that this one in row 9, I think it was. No, row 9, here they are. they started their subscription with TechSci in 2016, on the 12th of the 1st in 2016. I'm currently sitting in 2021, and so I want to put in a function that determines how many years they've been with TechSci. Okay. Fortunately for you, you know how to take today's date. You simply say equals today, bracket, bracket, and it's displaying as a number at the moment. If I had to go and change it to a date, you'll see it does give today's date, year, month, day. Okay. Doesn't matter if I keep it as a number or a day at the moment, that's fine. It may be easier actually just to format it as a number for now. So now I need to take today's date and I need to subtract when they started. So for that, I'm going to take today's date and then I'm going to subtract from that what was happening in G11, which is when they started. So row 9, this is when they started. And then you're going to look at it and it's going to be like, oh, that's not the right answer. It is if you're looking in days. They want to know how many years you've been with them. So all that I need to do to make that work is I'm going to put this first bit of my formula or my argument into brackets, and then I'm going to divide this all by 365 and a quarter. So for the quarter, I'm using 0.25. Sorry, 0.25. If you had just used 365, they would have accepted that as a suitable answer as well. And then you can format that to the nearest whole number if you want to as well. Okay, so that would have been, they had been with them for 5 years, TechSci for 5 years. And obviously that's going to change. I mean, if you run this function next year, it will probably change up again, and the year after that, and the year after that, for those of you that maybe review this 2021 paper in a few years' time. Right, and question 3.4, they asked me to work in cell H8. They've graded out nicely for me. And for this one, they've asked me to, they say each location has a unique log on that it is determined by the service provider. So you'll see he has a log on and it's got a funky little number next to it. And based on that number, you can determine who the service provider is. The table that has that information is on the second worksheet. And here you can see Capecom, T6C, Comtel, S6C, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to put in a function in here that will automatically, based on this logon information, tell me what service provider this cafe is based with. So for this argument, I'm going to have a lookup because it's looking it up in a table. If I look carefully at the lookup table here, I can see that the data has been organized horizontally and not vertically, so we're going to utilize an H lookup instead of our traditional V lookups. So H lookup, the lookup value, if you look at the tip, is what you're looking up in the table, which is going to be that value there. The table array is based on the second spreadsheet, so as soon as I click on that spreadsheet, you're going to notice it puts that exclamation mark and the spreadsheet's name in the front. There it is. I don't need the headings for this one, I'm only using the data. So there we go, I've selected the data. And once it finds the information, which is that logon, which row do you want it to return to you? I want it to return the second row's value, so I'm going to say 2 there. And then for that, I'm not using an interval or an approximate match. It's not like where they're getting a score and the score is not exact. There's a specific value that it's looking up, so I type in false for an exact match there. Hit enter, and there you can see it will return independent. Now I've made one mistake. This value will not be able to be copied down because I have not fixed the cell range where it's looking up. So for that, I need to ensure that I lock those cells by absolute referencing those values there. And there you can see it's absolute range reference that on my lookup table. So if I were to now copy this function down, it would then still be true. And it would just use the next lookup value, but this lookup range would still be selected. So that was question 3.4 with 4 marks. 3.5, they asked me to work in the worksheet business users, and we're going to be chartifying some of the data in this one. So I select the values here. For this one, they asked me to create a graph by using the information on the sheet. Your graph should resemble the picture below. Once again, you'll be able to see the screenshot in the question paper link below this video. Okay, so I selected the data. I click on Insert because I'm putting something into my spreadsheet. They've asked for a 3-dimensional pie chart. I click on the pie chart section, click on 3D pie chart. We're off to a great start. They want this chart title to say benefits because that's what they had in the screenshot. Also, the legend, if I look at the screenshot, needed to be the right of that chart area, so I click on the plus sign. I do want a legend, but I go to more options and say, please pop off to the right. That's that done. More than that, they want data labels on the outside end, but they want it to be shown as percentages. So I click on plus. I do want data labels. I want that data labels on the outside end. I don't want the values. I want the percentages, so I go down to more options. And instead of a value, I'm going to say percentage, and I'm going to suppress the values. So now you can see I've got the percentage that each of these various corporate ratings are for these different entities or these benefits. More than that, they would like this slice of the pie. They want it to be filled with an image. So watch what happens with my handles. Currently, I've selected all the areas in this pie chart, and I'm just going to highlight that by zooming in slightly. I see I was out of it. So yeah, you can see the entire plot area selected. If I want to select that slice specifically, watch how I select. Here's my chart area, chart plot area, and click again, and now you can see the handles only apply to that slice. I can then go to Format. I'm going to change the shape fill at the top here, but instead of using a color, I'm going to utilize a picture. I've got the picture on file, so all that I'd say is from File, navigate to my folder where all of this information is saved, and I select that file, which is what they've asked for in the question paper, that 3-file transfer, and click Insert. And that should be all 5 marks in the bag. Created the 3D pie chart, 1 mark. Graph title's been changed to benefits, 2 marks. Data labels outside end, 3 marks. As a percentage, 4 marks. And that the large data file transfer series has been filled with that picture instead. Question 4 is going to be utilizing the file for SmartCape. In my exam folder, open that one up. Once again, please be aware of what worksheet in the workbook you're utilizing. The first question, 4.1, is a simple formatting question. They say you need to utilize a spreadsheet feature to display the main heading across columns A1 to N1. Currently, the heading is only in cell A1. I want to stretch it across through to N1, so I click and drag across through to there to select that entire cell range. Then I'll go to the ribbon, Home menu to merge and center, and stretch that across columns A through to N. That's question 4.1 for 1 mark. 4.2 tells me that in G, they've basically recorded how many users are going to be utilizing or doing these sessions, I assume training sessions on these various packages on offer. And they're going to be running this training in various sub-councils at various locations. They've already added up, if you look at the bottom of the column for this range, G through to M. So from G4 all the way down to M82, they've already added up how many people are doing, for example, the first package, which was stand under correction, I should check, spreadsheets, then PDFs is next. They've all been added up, and these things have been, or these packages on offer, and the number of users doing them have been shown as a percentage of the total in the cell range. So they've added up specifically all of these, but the internet users, they haven't created a percentage based on this. So much like when you get a mark back for your test, you'll take the mark you were given and divide it by the test total. We're going to do something similar with the internet users. It's going to require me to add up all of these users and then divide it by specifically what the internet users are going to be. So for this, I'm going to start off with just adding everything up. Say I'll equal sum, add up that entire cell range there, and you can see that's everybody. I then need to take the internet users specifically, so I'm going to say that cell and divide it by the total, much like your mark for the test out of the test total, which is everything. Right, you can see it's a 0 point something, so it's basically lending itself towards a percentage. You would have been awarded a mark if you multiplied that entire formula that you've created by 100, but why do that when Excel has a percentage style built into the application? So all that I need to do is go down the Home tab in the ribbon, click on percentage, and it will format it as 88%. So that was 4 marks for question 4.2. They then asked me in column C to utilize conditional formatting to highlight all the sub-councils where the users are more than 300. So for this conditional formatting, I'm going to select the range where I want the formatting to apply. I click on conditional formatting. I'm going to use highlighting, not for something greater than because it's not in the cell. So I'm going to have to utilize a formula. So let's click on more rules. This dialog box opens. I'm going to use a formula to determine which cells to format. And for this one, I'm going to say, please take that cell, but not absolutely. I just wanted to use cell D4. And when D4 is greater than 300, and it will obviously go down the list based on what I'm working in, whether it's D5, D6, D7, D8, and all the way down to D82. If it's greater than 300, I would like you to please highlight that cell because that's what they asked me to do, or fill it. And red is my favorite color, so I'm going to use that. So D4 greater than 300, I want you to then fill it with a red fill. And if you look now, you can see that one's working. Let's quickly just check on manage rules and see why the rest aren't popping up. Let's edit. I see it's changed this up. Okay, yeah, it's our problem. So let's quickly just go and fix that rule there. Apply, there we go. And there suddenly you see all the values where the total users are greater than 300. The highlighting will go to red. So once again, if there are any issues with your conditional formatting, click on conditional formatting, click on manage rules, and here you can see the formula that I've utilized for that, that fill. Edit rule, there you can see what it's doing. It's taking D4 greater than 300, and obviously it will do that for all the subsequent total number of users in that range as well. Right, that was question 4.3. We're now moving on to 4.4. The total sessions for each district are indicated in Q7 to Q12. There we go. In that one, they tell me that Q9 contains the result for District 3, but it's wrong. So this is going to be based on the range that applies in A4. Sorry, it's going to be based on the stuff in cell N, the total number of users down here. But I only want to add them up in this cell range here. Listen to my language. I want to add them up if they are a District 3. So I'm adding things up. That's a sum function. So I'm going to use a SUMIF. SUMIF, you're going to start off with your criteria you're looking at, because this is the first part is your criteria range. So I say go look in the district column over there. In the district column, if it is equal to the criteria District 3. Now I can type it, or I can utilize a cell reference. I'm going to do the cell reference instead, and I'm going to say if it's equal to that there, where it says District 3, then I want you to please go and add up this range over here, and I simply select that there up to there. I can close my function. So it's looking in range A4, looking to see if it's the same as that value there, and then it will add up the total number of users in column N. And there the correct value now displays. Right. For the next thing that they have there in 4.5, they have thrown a text function at me, and they say the number for each subcouncil appears in column B, over here. And they ask me to display, they say an attempt has been made in cell C4 to display the name of the subcouncil along with the number. But you're going to notice that each of these shows Lansdowne space and then the number, C point space and then the number, and in this one it's not displaying the way it ought to. It's basically showing 12 town center from the right hand side in this function. So I need to edit this function so that it displays correctly. I can see that each of these text sections here are preceded by 2 digits. So if I use a right function and it's taking from the right, I want to take the entire length of that function from the right hand side. Okay, so that's going to take everything, in other words, from the right hand side and basically show the same thing again. But I don't want 2, I want to take 2 less than that so that it's only taking the town center. So let's start with that and say minus 2. So it's taking the length of the entire text string less 2 from the right hand side of B4, and that will return just the town center. I need the number though. So you can use a concatenate. I find that it's inclined to be a little bit confusing. So the easiest then at this stage would be using the ampersand, and I'm going to add to that a left function where I now take from that same text string, except now I'm taking 2 digits. Okay? Town center 12. Another mistake. You can see each of these has a space between. Simple fix. Go into my function here again and add another ampersand, except between these two I'm going to say quotation, space, quotation, and now when I hit the return key you can see it's got my town center that I used for the length of the entire string minus the 2 from the front there, from the right hand side, plus the space, plus the left and 2 digits that I want to chuck at the end of the text string. And there's my answer there. Quite a lengthy one. That one was worth 4 marks. Right, the last thing that I need to do is in the app sessions worksheet of this question. So under app sessions, I'm going to use a subtotal feature to determine how many people or how many are coming from each district. They say the number for each sub-council appears in column B. Okay. And in this, they want me to indicate in column C oh no, this was still question 4.5. My apologies there. We're looking at 4.6. They want me to calculate how many sessions in total each district has for each program. So you can see they've got the district, and so for each of those it's obviously going to be a session that they're hosting. So for this one I select the entire cell range, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to use the subtotal feature, which I find under the data tab in my menu. Click on subtotal on the side of the ribbon, it's right at the end here. So at each change in district I'm going to ask it to add up the number of people that are doing Word, Internet, and email, it seems. Right, so I'm not going to use that one. Word, Internet, and email, according to the screenshot that they've got at the bottom there. So at each change district, I want you to add up Word, Internet, and email. Click OK. Now it's giving me the district total at the top there, but I don't want to include all of the bits in the middle here. So if I click on 3, it includes everything. If I click on 1, it only gives me the grand total, and if I click on 2 at the top here, let me just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So 3 is everything, 1 is just the grand total, and 2 gives me all the subtotals for the districts that I'm doing, which is basically what they've asked for in this question. Right, diving into question 5, we're going to look at the access question now. For this one, we're going to utilize the file 5property-c-city in our exam folder. And as always, we need to enable the macros. This is to protect you against any macro viruses that could be embedded in the access database. Right, the first 11 marks of this paper are all data validation techniques that will be done to that first table. And as always, they've included 2 tables, the one being a dummy table that once you've opened it, you'll notice it's got absolutely zip content in it. And This is because they don't want any validation techniques that you apply to that to affect the rest of your database. So in this database, we can open this one, toggle through to the design view by changing our view in the top left corner of the ribbon. And we are going to change a couple of the properties here. The first one that they ask us to change, they say change this field size of agency to 25. So you select that field in the top here. It's currently sitting at 50. Literally need to just change that to 25 and you've scored yourself a mark. Question 5.1.2 asks you to create an input mask for the agent code field. And they want it to be one that will ensure that the user utilizing this database can insert 2 letters, but those letters need to be in capital, followed by 1 or an optional second digit. So there's 1 compulsory number, 1 optional number. This will all be done in your input mask, and this is all at the back of your question paper. You'll notice you have an input mask sheet, which allows you literally to copy this. For a capital letter, you'll use the greater than sign. A compulsory letter, you use the code LL, because there are 2 in the beginning of this field code. You're then going to utilize 1 compulsory digit, which will be a 0, and then an optional number, which is 9, and you've scored yourself 3 marks for question 5.1.2. 5.1.3 brings you to the one agent focus area. They say this contains a combo box already. Now, to utilize the combo box, we move from the tab at the bottom here where it does with general, and we'll then move across to the lookup tab on the side. It's currently set as a value list. A value list basically means that you have typed the values that will appear in the combo box. This row source type can be redirected to a query that's been created or another table that it contains the values. But for this one, they've already given us value list where they've typed in the values. Now, I can see that they've used semicolons and quotation marks to separate the various items on this combo box that the user is allowed to select from. Easier than me typing that, however, is to utilize the 3 dots on the side. It opens up this dialog box, and literally here I can then hit the return key and type in the last value, which is going to be century on lake. And there we go, we'll hit the OK, and you'll now know that that one has been added to your list of possible sources to select from. The next question that we need to do is change a property of this field so that the user can only select an item from this. So currently, if they haven't selected one of those, they will still be allowed to type a value of their own choosing, but we want to restrict that so that the user will only be limited to the list. So if you look down in this list of properties here, there's a field that says limit to list, and then I will simply toggle this to yes. So I click on the drop down and set it to yes instead of no. Right, just going to zoom out for a section there. The next one that we're going to look at is the agency image field. This is a new field that we then need to create in the database. It's going to be called agency_image. And they want it so that we can add an image to this. An image in an Access database can either be added as an attachment or an object linking and embedding. So I'm going to just use OLE object. And that was 2 marks for the creation of the field and for selecting the correct data type on the side. And that brings us to the end of the first section of this Access question, where it deals specifically with ensuring that you have valid data that you insert on the database. That's question 5.1. Right, the next one we're going to look at, obviously remember any changes made in the design view, you'll be required to also save those changes, so just click yes once you've closed it. And in 5.2, we're going to look at the query section of the paper. Now, usually the first query question is one where you have to create it from scratch. So we're going to use the Create tab. When creating a query, we utilize it in Design View. And we're going to base this not on the agencies table, because remember that was the dummy table where you were putting in various validation rules, but we're going to use the available properties one. We click Add and close this dialog box. You can now see that this list of possible fields that I can add to my query have come up, and they have said in my question here that I need this query to have the following fields in it. They want area, so you simply double click on that one, bedrooms, double click on that one, bathrooms, monthly payment, agent, it should be down here somewhere, there we go, and finally agent contact. Now these are the ones they want displayed, and this is where they always throw a bit of a curveball. They say display only those properties that could be rented for an amount less than 11,000, but I don't have either the rental or the rent price. So I'm going to add in a monthly payment, I assume, or is it under rates? I think we needed to also include the rent by field and the monthly payment field. So I want to know whether I'm going to rent or buy it, and I also want to know what my monthly payments are. Okay, so under rent by, I'm going to put in the criteria. I'm interested in the ones only that I can rent, so quotation mark, rent, quotation mark. I always run between any criteria that I put in just to make sure that my query is doing what it should be doing. Under monthly payment, I'm going to I don't need to use quotation marks here because obviously I'm using numerical values, so it doesn't need to be put into quotation marks. And I'm only interested in the ones that are, less than 11,000. So let's run that as well and have a look. There we go. So these are ones that are all monthly payments less than 11,000. The last thing that I need to do is I need to deselect those two checkboxes, because if you remember in the question initially, they said to only display the area, bedrooms, bathrooms, agent contact number of these ones. I'm simply adding those extra two fields to put in my criteria. Okay, so I run that property. Currently it's called query 1 is because I have not saved it as of yet. Simply right click on it, save it, and then you can give it the name that they've asked you to. They ask you to save it as query 5_2. And it's now added to my list of access objects in this database. Can then close it. That's 5 marks in the bag for that one. Question 5.3 is modifying or editing an existing query, which is query 5.3. They say here, open this query and make the following changes to display how many properties are available in each area and the average price of the properties in each area. Now, a couple of things I need to do here in order to display that data specifically. The first thing that I'm going to need to do is toggle to the design view. I'm going to add the area again. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to ensure, and I'm going to move it to the beginning, I want to group it according to area, and then I want to work out the averages for those areas. So I'm going to activate the totals column while I'm in the design view of this query, and I'm going to ensure that it's currently grouping by area. Once it's grouped by area, I wanted to use the count function. So under the total section here, I navigate down to count of this area and the average monthly payment. So on this one, where I've got monthly payment, I don't want it on group by, but I'm going to navigate down to the average. So now when I run this query, you can see all these areas have been grouped. I can see how many properties are in that area and the average amount of those properties in those specific areas. So if I glance down this list, I can see that Century Views is by far, Aces Retirement Resort has actually got a far higher average monthly payment than any of the other properties in that area. Right, there's that question 5.4, so let's save that one and close. The next one that I need to modify is in query 5.4. Open this one up and toggle to design view. In this one, they want us to display only properties that are for sale. Okay, so if I look at my fields here, I've got area, property type, rent by, monthly payment rates, and levies. In the rent by one, for example, you can see properties that can be rented and properties that can be bought. So I'm going to go back to my design view. Under rent by, I'm going to put in the criteria. I'm only interested in properties that are for sale, so I'm going to say buy and run it, and you're going to see all of my rent ones have now disappeared based on that criteria which I've just added. The next thing that I need to do is the bank's interest rate has decreased by 1.25%. And so I'm going to add an additional field or a calculated field, which is going to give me the new rates with the diminished interest rate from the bank. they want this new field to be called new underscore installment. So I type in new underscore installment, and this is where I use my colon. So the colon separates whatever you're naming this new calculated field from the calculation you're inputting into it. So this new calculated field will be based on the monthly payment, the field called monthly payment, because that's a field name, you put it into square brackets. So square bracket, monthly payment, be careful to spell it correctly. And so I'm going to take the current monthly payment, and I'm taking 1.25% off that. 1.25 divided by 100, because it's 25%. So I'm going to use 1.25, 100 times divided by 100, multiplied by the monthly payment again. So I'll walk you through what this function is going to do in a bit. Let me just zoom into it quickly. So this is the new name of the calculated field. This is the existing amount, that monthly payment, and I'm subtracting from that 25%, so that's that 1.25 divided by 100 of the monthly payment. So now when I run it, I think it's got to do with my, it's my decimal value. Let's try that. There we go. And so now you can see my new installment value is no longer 16,243, but 16,039. Doesn't look like money yet though. So I toggle back to design view, right click in the bottom here, go to properties, and then here under format, I will then make it a currency. Run it, and there you can see I've got my new installment value with the 25% less on it. Right. Before you close this, obviously, we want to save and close. Close it, made changes to it, so you'll say yes. Right, question 5.5 had to deal with the form. We open the existing form that we have here. This is based on the available properties table. We're going to modify it as follows. They say to please change the font color of the heading to accent 5, 25%. So I'm going to go to design view. This can be done in either design or layout view, but any additional changes are usually done in design view, which is why it's my preference. Select the font there, go to format. Here by my font color, I click down, and that color that they've asked for, that accent 5, that blue accent 5, is the theme color. So here's blue, that's accent 1, this is blue, accent 5, and they want it to be 25%. There's 80, go down 1, 60, 40, 25. So blue accent 5, 25% darker, that's the one I want. So now my heading is the correct color. They want me to add an additional field, monthly payment. I'm going to dump it here in the middle between Jim and reference. Any new field that I'm adding needs to be added utilizing the content control box up here. So I'm going to go to design, and the one I'm interested in is the text box, not the label. The label's strictly there just to put new text in, so I'm going to click on that one. You'll see that the text box comes with a label, so I draw that one in, and there's my label on the side. You can also align it with the existing one in there and resize these ones so that it's sitting in the correct place. So this one that I'm adding, this field that I'm adding, is based on one that comes from that main table available properties. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this one monthly payment. We zoom out so you can see what I'm typing. There's monthly payment, that's just the label. And then this one, this is where the magic happens. This is going to be the name of the field, which is also monthly payment. Let's have a look at that now. If I toggle back to form view, and there you can see the monthly payment, and it's displayed as whatever the monthly payment for this particular one is. Need to change something to the formatting there. Currently it's using gray text. I want it to be in black and bold. Go back to design view. Grab that text or that font that's used there, click on format and change that to black and bold so that it's consistent with the formatting of the rest of those fields in the form. Right, so that's been added. They also want to add a picture as a background of the details section. So I'm currently in the details section. So you select in there, and you'll click on background image. We browse. It should be in your directory or your folder where the rest of your exam files are. You click on desktop. I'm going to navigate down to, where is it now? Grade 12 September data, and the magic picture I'm looking for is this 5 Smart City JPEG over here. Right, you click OK. And you can then use that as your background image for the form. The text box at the bottom here with whether they've got a swimming pool or not needs to be changed to a combo box. So simply click on that field, you right click and you'll say change it to a combo box. Then to change what your different options are inside that combo box, you'll right click again, click on properties, and then we are going to format what the row source is. I'm going to set it to a value list again. So here by table, I'm going to make it a value list, and then I'm going to type in the values again. And my two options are yes, you have a pool, or no, you do not. So now if I toggle back to the form view, you'll see here's my swimming pool, and there I can say yes or I can say no, dependent on which of those two options. That was the 6 marks for the form. Final question here is based on the report, so we can actually just save and close this form now. It's based on report 5.6. And there are a couple of things we needed to do to this form. They wanted us to group it according to, let me just double check here. They asked me to group it according to the area. They also wanted me to sort it based on which one's the most expensive, and they wanted that at the top. And they also wanted me to add a function below each group area to calculate the number of properties that are available in that area. Okay, so in order to do this, I need to go to the design view. Currently, my sorting and grouping options for this report aren't available to me, so right-click anywhere on the form and click on sorting and grouping if it's not. There you can check at the bottom. I've added it now. And here you can add a grouping if one hasn't been added at the outset when they created the report. So now I can go back here and say, actually, I do want to group it, and I want to group it according to the area. Right, that's the first thing I needed to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort it on something, and there you click on Add Sort. And for this, I'm going to sort it according to the most expensive properties. So here there should be monthly payment, and instead of going from smallest to largest, over here I'm going to go from largest to smallest. More about the area, because remember we need to put a calculation in each group footer. Currently it doesn't have a group footer, so you click on the More option here, and you're going to change this without a footer section to with a footer section. This gives me the option, obviously, of once again inserting a text box, which is the one that allows you to put in calculations. And I want to say, they want to know how many properties are available there. So that's my label. That's going to explain what this calculation is doing. You can resize your text box next to the label, and I'm just going to use a simple count here. I'm going to say equals count and bracket, wildcard bracket, because I'm literally just counting whatever's above in this particular grouping. And that will give me the answer to how many properties are available in this particular area. Let's go and have a look at that report now. So you can see how many properties are available in the Bergen Villas apartment. There are 4, Century City, there are 2, Century Views 3, and so forth. And it will have a total for each of those particular areas. And that was the end of your Excel question. Question 6, the HTML question, always a cool place to score some additional marks. My metaphorical Lego land, where you're just taking some bricks and building some cool web pages. Only thing to take into consideration here, obviously, is the fact that we're utilizing the 6th Century City updated PDF to have a look at what our final product is going to look like. So we've got a horizontal rule happening there, something happening to the heading as well. We're going to probably update something in the tab at the top of the page as well. And then the other confusion was later on in question 6, we navigate to another HTML and then have to come back here for this final Facebook URL that we need to make link. So you can see there's a link in there now, and so we're going to replicate that in a bit. Right, when working on this one, we're going to be using the 6 Smart Cities file first. So that one over there, right-click on it, edit with Notepad++. And with that, we're also going to open it up in a browser. So I'm going to side-by-side these two. There we go. Right, so let's run through those questions. 6.1, open them. We've done that. We're in Notepad++. We now going to display our name and surname in the browser tab by adding it after Smart Cities. Obviously, in an exam situation, they will never ask you to use your name, so it might be something along the lines of putting in your exam number. But we're editing what's in the title tag. At the moment, it says SA Smart Cities, and so they want us to put in our name and surname instead. So I'm going to call myself Joe Soap. And save the changes in your editor, update your browser, and you'll see your tag at the top, or your tab now has got a different title. That was one mark. The next one on 6.1.2, inserting a horizontal line under our city. It currently has one. We are putting in an additional one and putting some other changes to it. So there's our city in my script. All that I need to do is put an insertion point in there, dump in another HR tag, horizontal rule. As soon as I save and refresh that, you're going to see that boyo pops up there. A couple of things I need to do to it, though, is I need to make it a little bit bigger. I need to make it thicker. So there under size as an attribute, I'm going to say size equals 3. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, you can see it's immediately a little bit thicker than the initial one. And the other thing is that they only wanted to stretch across 90% of the page. Currently it's 100%, and that's irrespective of how big our window size is as well. So with this, we are going to go under the following attribute. We're going to add in a width of this line, and I'm just going to type in there 90% rather than a particular pixel size, because if it's 90%, it basically will ensure, irrespective of how big this browser window is, it's always going to subtract 5% on that side and 5% on that side to bring it to our 90%. So slightly bigger now. You can see it's still got the same gap on the side because I've asked its width to remain 90%. Cool, that one's done. That was 3 marks because you're creating the horizontal rule, you're changing its size, and you're editing how far it's spanning across the top. Right, the next one we had to do was change the heading, the history of Century City, and we're going to change its font and all sorts of things like that. So we are going to add an additional tag to this. You can put it inset or not. I'm going to do it to the font, so I'm going to dump it inside this heading tag. And so I'm going to put in a font tag, and for every box I open is a box I close. So /font to close that tag again. There's my font tag. And I need to change it to Calibri. Now, we don't use font type in HTML, as you guys know, it's font face. So I say font face equals, and we're going to set this one to Calibri. That's the first attribute that I'm going to change. So as soon as I say save and I refresh the browser, you can see that the history, sorry, that one down here has been changed to Calibri. Additionally to that, the next attribute I need to change is I need to change the color. Remember to spell it like an American. And we're going to make the color red. Save it, refresh. There you can see my color of my font has now gone to red. And the final thing that I need to do, no, that was it. One was opening up the font tags, one was adding that font face attribute, and one was changing that color attribute for that text over there. That's 3 marks. The next thing that we need to do for 6.1.4 is they want to ensure that we're adding accessibility to that image for people who struggle to see. Now, you guys know about Microsoft's immersive reader and that type of thing, and this is where alt tags become really useful. It's not just when there's a broken image. So obviously, if I had to make a mistake like making that JPEG instead of JPG over here and save and refresh it, you're going to see that that image will break. So this is where an alt tag is useful. Here I can put in an attribute and say that this is a picture of Cape Town. I think that's all that we need, yeah. picture of Cape Town. There we go. So I type that in between quotation marks, and so I can see what it ought to have been if I'm the one editing the page. But more than that, it's also useful for immersive readers or somebody who's needing additional accessibility to something if they are visually impaired and need to be able to ascertain what's in that image that's on the page. So there you go. Alt tag has been added, one for adding the alt tag, one for changing it to a picture of Cape Town or Cape Town, as the case may be, for 2 additional marks there. Right, the next one we're going to be editing is the table, and this is where we're going to be utilizing the next file, which was the 6th Century City Schools. So once again, opening it up in the Notepad++ editor, and once again opening it up in a browser. Now, a couple of things we need to do to this one. The first thing that they want us to do is they want to ensure in 6.2 that this table, they've given us a screenshot. Once again, you can refer to the question paper when you look at this. They want it to look exactly like the example in the screenshot. But what I noticed at the outset is this is a table header. So this sticks out, it's bold, it's centered, and the easiest way to do that is with the tag th, which will automatically center it. Box I open is a box I close, and it will bold it. So there you can center and bold. More than that, they wanted to go across the top of all 3 of these images. So in the first tag, the opening tag, I'm going to add in a col span, which is an attribute which will ensure that this then spans over however many columns I specify, and in this case I specify 3. I save it, I refresh that, and there you can see Century City Schools now spans across the top. There's a problem with the Curo Independent School. If I opened up my file, I could see that Curo is actually a JPEG file, not just a JPG, so what I would have had to do here is go and change that. Small little mistake there, it's crazy, I know, and as soon as you do that, you'll notice that when you refresh this one, that image then will display, which is great. That's what we wanted it to do, so a quick fix there. The other thing that I've noticed is that my table border is slightly thicker and that there is cell spacing, not cell padding, between the various images inside this table. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can either change this one or you can just add an additional one that says cell spacing, if you want to keep your cell padding, that is. And we want to make the cell spacing equal to 6, and watch how it changes my table in a bit. So there you see all the images bumped on top of each other. As soon as I refresh that one, you'll see it now has that nice bit of space around the edges there. The next thing I'm going to do to that is I'm going to create, okay, this is where we had to jump back, I think it was. Yeah, this is where we had to jump back to fix that Smart Cities page. So a little bit of confusion when it came to 6.2, the last question, is that it was actually a question that was based in 6 smart cities. And they want us to ensure that it links on that Facebook. So Facebook has a link through to that text. Cool. So what we're going to do there is we put in an anchor tag that allows for that to happen. I'm just going to quickly open up this thing in the browser as well, this web page, just to see what it looks like. There we go. So I want to go down to this bit at the bottom here, and instead of it showing the full URL, I want it to actually say Facebook. And so I type in Facebook, and for this I'm going to use an anchor tag, and much like an anchor in real life, it basically connects the boat, and in this case the word Facebook, to a particular place. And the attribute we add to this anchor tag is called an href, a hyperlink reference, and for this I'm going to use this bit of text here, and I'm just going to cut it, Control X, and dump it in here, Control V, and close those quotation marks. Don't need these additional ones at the end. So here's what the full expression looks like. It's a href, and it's hyperlinking on the Facebook, and there's my closing tag as well. So now, instead of that URL sitting in the bottom there, you'll see it now has the word Facebook hyperlinked. So when I click on it, you'll see my browser will change in a section. There we go, to the Century City Facebook page, which is what I'd like it to do. Right, and that's the close of question 6. For question 7, final question is our general or integrated question, and 3 questions that they gave to us, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 here. In 7.1, they throw a little bit more Excel at us. 7.2 was the first time in a long time that we saw PowerPoint again. I think the last time was in grade 10, although we weren't required to actually edit the presentation, but rather it was a integrated question where we looked at exporting the presentation into a Word document, and we'll have a look at that as well. That was for 3 marks. And then finally our trusty mail merge that we did in question 4. Let's dive into question 7.1 that requires us to use the file 7 users XLS. And first things first is I'm going to make this a lot bigger than it currently is. There we go. Right, these are various registered public library users. The first time you register, according to the question, there is a once-off registration fee of 550 Rand. However, if you cancel and then register later on again, there will be 12% that you're liable for of the registration fee. If you merely put your subscription on hold or pause it, it will be a 7.5% subscription fee that you then need to pay, or not subscription, sorry, registration fee. And then finally, those who are continuing won't be liable for any reconnection fee. So we want to ascertain what the new reconnection fee is based on those things. Something you should have picked up in my language so far was if this, if that, and indeed this is what we're going to utilize in this question, which is a nested if. And they spell it out for us at the bottom of question 7.1. They say insert a nested if function into cell G6, which I've already selected there, that will indicate the additional fee that the C point will have to pay based on their subscription status. Now, they are only continuing, so obviously it is going to be 0 Rand. That they're liable for, but we want to set this function up so that it is something that we can then auto-fill down and will automatically stay true based on whoever utilizes a spreadsheet, so that the subscription fee will then be true. So because we're moving it down, that should also give you a little bit of a clue as to what we need to do with that cell we'll probably be referring to a lot, which is what the existing subscription fee is. So let's start with the one that we're going to do off the bat, which is an if statement, and what we're going to do if they cancel it. Okay, so if in this cell it is equal to the word cancelled, they will then be liable, and this is what we need to do if they're true. They'll then have to pay 12% of that subscription fee at the top. So I'm going to absolute cell reference that, because remember, that's the one I want to fix, so that if I do have to copy this function down, it will remain true. So I'm going to take that amount there and I'm multiplying it by 12%. Now, if it's false, I'm not simply going to make them pay nothing. There is another thing I need to test, and that is whether they have paused their subscription, which is why I'm going to put in my next if statement. Now I'm going to say if that cell is equal to the word paused instead. So I type in there paused, like that. Then we're going to take that amount there, always that amount, so I fix it by hitting the F4 key. $G, $2 means stay in column G, stay in column 2, and I'm going to multiply that by 7.5%. Now that decimal point can throw you, and this is where I would like to encourage you to utilize your numpad when putting in a decimal value into Excel. So just make sure that your numlock is on, so that that little green light is burning in the top of your keyboard, and then you will utilize the delete, or the one that's just next to the 0 key on your numpad, just to ensure that you're using the correct decimal value. Finally, if it's false for all of those, in other words, they haven't cancelled, they haven't paused, then obviously they continued, in which case they are liable for absolutely nothing. And then we go back to the black brackets again. There we go. Hit the return key. This one's continuing, and so they will be liable for 0 Rand in that sense. And that was a hefty one. That was worth 8 marks. There was 1 mark for if they're cancelled, and then what they need to do with the output. They're 2 marks, 12% times G2, that's 3. And then the next one, if they're paused, that's another 1 mark. 7.5% times G2, that's another 3, so that's 6 marks. Then continuing, 0, that's 7, and then finally correct absolute cell referencing and ensuring that that cell over there and this cell over there are locked when we can utilize this function all the way down. Right, and so that's what we were required to do there by 7.1. Let's look at 7.2, which is a question on if we were to create handouts of this PowerPoint presentation. So we open up the PowerPoint presentation. We want to create something that has notes and things on it. I go to File. I'm going to click on the Export button here at the beginning, and I need to create handouts. It's the 4th from the top. Create handouts, and you want notes next to slide. That allows you to then put notes in next to that, and I think that was the second document, must have lines, sorry, next to it, so that would be the second radio button that I need to select there. Click OK. It would then create a Word document with the PowerPoint presentation and the ability to put notes on lines down the right hand side of the slides. Here you can see my Word document flashing at the bottom. Here's slide 1, and there are the lines next to it, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. We would then required to save this as 7 handouts. I would have gone to File, Save As, would have saved it to that same folder, which is on my desktop. Let me just find it there. There we go. And then this would have been saved as 7 handout. Right, and that's all that we needed to do there for 3 marks. You were getting 1 for creating the exporting as a handout, and the third one was for provision for the notes on the side of the handout. For our final question, question 7.3, we're going to be running a mail merge, and we're going to utilize our spreadsheet again, except in this one we're going to utilize the second spreadsheet, the merge one. And it's important to always open up the document where you'll be merging from. In this one you can see that my first row contains headings. It's got all the total entrants from various library districts. So go and inspect the document you're going to be merging from as a start. We're going to be doing this to the document 7 lib sessions for library sessions. And I'm going to, for this mail merge, use my mailings tab at the top. Click on Start Mail Merge. My go-to is the letters, unless I'm doing labels or something like that. This allows me to simply just put in merge fields into a document and to run a mail merge. I then select my recipient list. I'm not going to type this from scratch. I'm using an existing list, and I navigate to where it's saved in my grade 12 data. And I'm coming from the document 7 users. I click open, and this is why it was so important for us to investigate it first, is we know that there are multiple spreadsheets in this, and I'm using the one called merge. More than that, I know that the first row of this spreadsheet contains headers, so I click OK. They tell me in my question there to send the summary only to libraries who have 300 or more entrants. So I need to edit my recipient list. I'm going to start off by deselecting all of my recipients. And I'm going to look at the total number of entrants. I'm going to do an advanced filter on them. I'm going to filter the total number of entrants that are greater than or equal to 300. So now you can see my total entrants here, 336, 575, all of them are 300 or more. I can then select these ones. Okay. The next thing I need to do is replace these placeholders with the actual merge field. So here by district, I'm going to go insert merge field and put in the real district one. Library, I'm going to go to my merge field and put in library. Total sessions, right, and we're going to put in for that. I'm just trying to see now, total sessions, total entrants probably here. And when I've done that, I can then finish and merge and edit the individual document. Let's have a look. So here you can see my mail merge, all the subsequent ones, and we're going to save this one, this completed merge, as 7lib merge. So I go to File, Save As, and we're going to dump it into our document here and call this one 7lib merge into our examination folder. And this would have given me my 4 marks. Please don't forget to save changes that you made to this document. This allows you later on to go and re-merge or edit the document that you're merging from in the future. So I click on the Save button, and that's that. It's also important to note at this point, since we've concluded the paper, saving. Do it regularly. There is an autosave feature enabled on all of your computers in the examination, but don't leave it to chance. It's good practice to save every 5 minutes as you're running through your question paper. All of the best for those of you that will be writing soon, and I hope that you are able to garner some value from re-looking at this prelim paper of 2021.